the real power pyramid of the USA, who actually governs the modern world. For most of us, democracy seems simple. We vote, politicians lead, decisions are made, but behind the visible institutions lies a deeper structure, a layered system of influence, wealth, and control. One that transcends borders, elections, and even laws. This is not about fantasy or fiction. This is about how the world really works. Let's examine the power structure, from the surface, all the way to the top. Level 10. The President and elected officials. The presidency is often seen as the pinnacle of power. In reality, it's a symbolic position within a much larger system. Presidents may command armies and sign laws, but they operate within limits: legal, economic, institutional, and geopolitical. They rely on advisors, donors, lobbyists, think tanks, and bureaucracies. They inherit wars, they inherit debt, and many decisions are already shaped by forces beyond their reach. They influence policy, but rarely design it from scratch. Most presidents read from a script written long before they arrived. Level 9. Legacy media institutions. Newspapers, cable news, and broadcast networks shape how people see the world. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, The New York Times, and others don't just report events, they contextualize them. But these outlets often rely on the same sources: press releases, official briefings, intelligence leaks, and corporate PR. Ownership is consolidated. Just 6 companies control the majority of American media. And advertising, especially from pharmaceutical, defense, and tech companies, heavily influences content. Journalism still matters. But what stories get covered and how often serves the interests of those higher up the chain. Level 8. Billionaire class and tech elites. Today, IS billionaires aren't just rich, they are infrastructural. They own social platforms, data pipelines, space programs, and health foundations. Figures like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Mark Zuckerberg shape technology, culture, and even public health. Through philanthropy, lobbying, and venture capital, they influence research, education, and regulation, sometimes openly, sometimes behind closed doors. Their decisions affect billions, but they are accountable to no electorate. Level 7. The military-industrial complex. Since President Eisenhower first warned of it in 1961, the military-industrial complex has only grown. It refers to the ecosystem of defense contractors, weapons manufacturers, lobbyists, and Pentagon insiders that drive U.S. foreign policy. Companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, and Northrop Grumman receive massive government contracts. Meanwhile, retired generals often join corporate boards, and corporate executives advise military strategy. The result? A feedback loop where war becomes profitable and peace becomes less practical. Level 6. Narrative control organizations. Across academia, NGOs, and legal foundations, organizations exist that define the boundaries of acceptable speech. Groups like the ADL, SPLC, and ACLU began with missions to protect civil rights. Over time, some have shifted focus to categorizing and flagging speech as hateful, dangerous, or misleading. Social platforms often defer to these organizations when removing content or banning users. Their influence shapes legislation, education, and corporate policy, determining not just what you can say, but what ideas can exist in public discourse. Level 5. Big tech and the data economy technology platforms are now global gatekeepers. Google decides what information rises to the top. Meta and TikTok decide what goes viral. Amazon controls much of e-commerce infrastructure, and companies like Palantir power government surveillance and data analytics. Algorithms curate reality, invisibly. They can amplify outrage, suppress dissent, and monitor behavior at scale. Your search results, your feed, your data, all part of a marketplace you didn't consent to, but live inside daily. Level 4. transnational policy groups, and think tanks. There are organizations that most citizens have never heard of, yet their recommendations often become law. The World Economic Forum, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderberg Group host gatherings of politicians, bankers, executives, and intellectuals. They don't govern, but they advise, coordinate, and shape the long-term strategic vision. Policy proposals on climate change, global health, digital currency, and education often start here, years before they appear in mainstream politics. Elections change governments. These institutions outlast them. Level 3. Intelligence agencies and the national security state. The CIA, NSA, FBI, and other security agencies operate across borders and beyond the reach of the average voter. They conduct surveillance, manage international operations, fund foreign opposition, and occasionally, according to declassified files, manipulate domestic narratives. Presidents come and go, but the intelligence community remains. Protected by secrecy and shielded from transparency, these agencies often act autonomously. The deep state is not a myth. It is simply the permanent state. Level 2. Institutional investors. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street together. These firms manage over $20 trillion in global assets. They are major shareholders in virtually every Fortune 500 company, including the media, tech, pharmaceutical, and defense sectors. Their voting power influences corporate strategy, climate policy, diversity rules, and political donations. They don't run companies, they own them. And with cross-ownership so deep, they often benefit no matter which company wins. This is financial governance without borders and without elections. Level 1. Central banks and monetary institutions. At the top sits the world's financial foundation. Central banks, especially the Federal Reserve and the Bank for International Settlements, create the monetary environment for all the rest. They set interest rates, control liquidity, buy government debt, and indirectly dictate policy through bond markets and inflation targeting. While they appear governmental, many are private or quasi-private. And unlike elected bodies, central banks are rarely held accountable by the public. Their decisions determine recessions, asset bubbles, and national solvency. The power to issue currency is the power to shape the future, and those who control money control everything built on top of it. Closing message. The real power pyramid isn't a fantasy. It's a network, a system of influence more enduring than any single election. Presidents may sit at the podium, but behind them are donors. Behind the donors are corporations. Behind the corporations are investors, and behind them, the money itself. To understand modern history, follow the hierarchy, not the headlines. Because real power doesn't announce itself. It just keeps working, silently, systemically, and globally.